So you guys might not know this, but all of us in this room and everybody who's watching online, currently right now, we are on a boat in the middle of the ocean. We are rocking back and forth, side to side. We're feeling a little bit, not seasick, but it's rocking. It's not like a hurricane. We're not totally going overboard, but we definitely have to think straight to move straight. Does anybody feel that? Anybody feel that rocking? Well, I do. I feel that rocket. So it was March 20th of 2022. That was the day that I got dizzy. And dizzy was the best word I had to describe it. And I'll never forget it because it was the day before my birthday. So I was working on a big TV show set in Atlanta, and I was standing in a lobby just like this, and all of a sudden my world just kind of started spinning. So I was standing in a lobby and I got dizzy. There was no traumatic accident. There was no, I didn't slip and fall. I didn't get, hit by a big light. I didn't get slapped by a director for making his lunch order wrong. There was nothing. I was standing, and then all of a sudden I was on a boat in the middle of the ocean. You can imagine the terror that hits you when something so unexplainable just seemingly comes absolutely out of nowhere. So my first thought, right? It's a tumor. It's my brain. It's a hemorrhage, something really really bad. Go and get an MRI. Brain's fine. Okay, yeah, that's really great news. Oh, it's got to be vertigo. It's ear, nose, and throat. We go to an ENT. Folks, my ears, nose, and throat were probably three of the healthiest parts of my entire body, which is great news. Except for by the time we got that info, the dizziness had gotten so bad that I could barely cook my own food. I was afraid to drive. I couldn't work. And my head was basically just filled with this feeling of a balloon, just filled with too much helium, and it was just about to pop at any time. So what followed that day, that March 20th, 2022, has been 3.5 years of pain, frustration, confusion, depression, grief, heartbreak, and everything else that you can kind of name in there. I had to move back in with my family for a little while, who are here. Thank you guys for still seeing me like this. I had to move back in with my family for a little while, where I struggled to walk down the hallway sometimes to go to the bathroom. I had doctors who had no idea what was going on. They would give me treatments that would make it worse. So I remember there was one specifically bad moment when I was lying on their living room floor, just bawling out everything I had in me because they gave me a treatment that made me feel like I was dying, but it didn't help my dizziness. So I was still dizzy, and I felt like I was dying from something else. And then, yes, and then I also went through a divorce at the same time. So there's never really a good time to go through a divorce, but this specific little nugget of time was pretty unexplainably bad. So that's what I was going through for the last 3.5 years. That's what my experience was. But that is not at all what the outside world saw from me. So what I did, I put together a brief list of all the things that I did that the outside world has seen from me over the past 3.5 years. I was brought on as a director of video production, which including that job and my personal projects, I've filmed about 50 commercial videos. I have directed 4 music videos. I've booked multiple TV shows as an actor. I've played sold out comedy shows. I've written 2 feature film scripts, 1 pilot TV show script. One of the feature film scripts, we filmed a proof of concept short film right here, actually, in this exact venue, which got us into a development. We won like a pitch competition, so now we're in development with that project. I started an executive coaching practice where I've helped my clients transform their lives, their careers, their relationships. I am on a weekly coaching podcast with 2 other executive coaches, and I started a new relationship with someone very very special to me. So someone from the outside could very easily see these last 3 years of my life as the most productive and possibly creative years that I've ever had. So somehow, despite all the grief, the anxiety, the depression, the frustration, I've still somehow managed to find and engage with creativity in ways that have just blown me away in even realizing what creativity could mean for me. I very much thought it was one thing, and I have learned through this process that creativity means many different things. And all those times that my brain just wanted to shut down, it just wanted to go into survival mode, I was still able to tap into some type of creative avenue, creative outlet that has created just genuine opportunities and freedom for me that I never would have thought possible in my entire life. So in this panel, that's what we're going to be discussing. I'm going to be joined by two incredible women who each of them have their own experiences and journeys through things such as grief, you name it, just anything in there, recovery, healing. We're going to talk about where that creative spark comes from. We're going to talk about what creativity can mean in different ways. We're going to kind of get creative around creativity, where creativity and community intersect, but then finally how creativity and community are actually vital to our recovery process. Cannot be more excited to explore this with you. So can you please, guys, help me welcome Shalisa James and Tali Sugisawa to join me, please. Oh, thank you so much.
So glad to be here. Thanks for having us, AJ.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you.
Woot, woot.
I don't think the seating matters. Just whatever your
This looks good
preference is. So guys, thank you so much for coming. I really, really appreciate this. I would like to start with either one of you, honestly. Just to simply, would you just like to share your story of the struggle and how creativity played into that, and just fill them in on who you guys are, please?
Sure. For those I don't know, I'm Shalisa James. I've had a really fun, full, adventurous life as an entertainer, also as a company owner. I've been a singer my whole life, pianist, musician, arranger, and then I had the opportunity to own a company that produces entertainment acts, so getting to create shows, create vocal groups, create bands. We've had even a national tour last year of A Christmas Carol. So we've had a really fun 25-year adventure with our company. And I'd like to say that my cancer journey that I'm going to share is one of the least interesting things about me. But I also feel very strongly, and I said this at one point in remission. I had a few months of remission, but I said this in remission, and I mean it with all my heart. If my situation can help a single soul out there, a single person fight back or find peace in their situation or find, some type of victory in their struggle, then it's all been worth it. So if you happen to be in a struggle, just know that that's my heart, and that is what gets me up in the morning as I've been going through this. My story is that I was thriving. I was doing great. I have an awesome husband that works with me as a partner and 3 adult children who are all happy and healthy and thriving. And I was on vacation in 2022. Oh, by the way, to the gentlemen, especially in the house, it might get a little graphic. I was on vacation in 2022 and suddenly had what some people would consider a normal menopause situation happening. When you're winding down, when your biological clock is winding down, they tell you you can kind of stop and start your cycle. And that's totally normal because as women, a lot of things we go through is hell on earth, but it's normal. And it's normal. So I was having an episode after several months, but not quite a year, of not having anything at all going on. And all of a sudden, it was bad. And through our vacation time, it was getting worse. And my daughter is a doctor, and I don't love medical attention at all. But she said, promise me as soon as you get back, you'll get it checked out. It's probably fine, but there's a 10% chance it's cancer. So I come back to Orlando. That was June. I come back, first appointment's late July. They run tests on me, including a pap smear. And ladies, my pap smear was fine. It was totally fine. Everything was normal. But we're just going to run another test to be safe. Thank you. A month goes by. In August, I get a sonogram. Sonogram is like, you have a pretty big fibroid, but we think everything's okay. We're just going to run a biopsy next month. Time is ticking. Next month, we're going to do a biopsy and see. So late September, they do a biopsy and they come back and they say, we're sorry, but it actually tested positive for cancer. And by this time, 3 months have gone by. They schedule a hysterectomy for November 1st. Now, all of this is important because it actually has to do with this city block. This next part of the story has to do with this city block. October 20th, I was headed here. We were going to actually hold a big audition here. I had a colleague that was a show director meeting me here, and I had paperwork and charts for them to sing, all kinds of stuff for this audition. I left my house not feeling so hot. I actually brought a black dress with me because I was so insane and used to it at the time, where I was like, I may just have to change clothes, and that's cool because that's my life right now. And I did not make it to Orange Blossom Trail, but everything started spinning. And I couldn't see straight. I'm driving. I start calling people, seeing if I could get help. Because at this point, I'm worried about the audition. And I'm like, who can be in this audition for me? So I start calling other people. Can you help with the audition? Can you help with the audition? And letting the show director know what's up. I'm not feeling so great. Okay, my new plan is I'm driving here, but I'm just going to show up in the parking lot because I can't walk into the building anymore. No, that ship has sailed. Things are, too out of control, too messy. So I was going to come here and drop off things and go home. But at this intersection, things were spinning out of control. The Orange blossomed to Taft Vineland, and I couldn't see. Everything was blurry. I pulled into that parking lot of that little strip mall that says smoke shop. I pulled into the parking lot and just in the driveway of the parking lot, slammed it into park and passed out completely. So I'm totally unconscious. And I believe that God woke me up because I was in the middle of the driveway. Somebody could have run into me, or I just might not have awakened because I was hemorrhaging really badly. And I found a parking space, called my mom, because everybody calls their mom first, right? I called my mom. Supposedly it was gibberish. And then I called 911. Or I called my doctor texted my doctor who said, call 911. Within 5 minutes, there was an ambulance. So that parking lot is always a reminder to me of kind of the onset of my journey, and also advocating for yourself, because I waited that whole time and my body would not wait any longer to get treated. So I had emergency surgery, an emergency hysterectomy that day. And that parking lot I passed by it, and Jeremy's like, I have post-traumatic stress over that parking lot. And I said, for me, it's kind of funny and like weirdly like, haha. No, and I said, not funny, haha. But I was like, it's a weird thing for me, but I feel disconnected from being traumatized by it. And I said, it might be because I was victorious and God woke me up. Like it could have been a bad situation, but it actually ended up being okay. I was saved for that situation by the ambulance. They got me there. I had emergency surgery. And as a result of that surgery, they told me, we're so sorry, but your cancer has spread. It is no longer, we don't know how far back it went, but they said you're stage 4. We found it in your lymph nodes. That also shows that the scans that you have where it's probably in your lungs now. So in October of 2022, I started this crazy journey of being what they consider terminal. They consider it end stage. They call it a very advanced cancer, and it's stage 4 endometrial cancer. They call it with METs, or with metastasis to lymph nodes, to my lungs. One lung started on the left, and then the right ended up getting in on the action, and then most recently to my liver. I've had 24 rounds of chemo or immunotherapy, the last one being just Monday. I've had 37 rounds of radiation, and several surgeries in this process. Now, when we talk about the creative process, and I've also talked about my job, it was really important to me during this whole thing. We got in the car from the first diagnosis, and Jeremy's like, we're shutting everything down for travel, for your gigs. The reason he was protective, thinking that like I was just going to be, changing my life drastically, was because he had a cancer diagnosis 20 years almost to the day, stage 4 lymphoma. And when he went through it really hard and fast. He had 7 months of treatment, 10 rounds of chemo, and then he was done. But in those several months that he was in treatment, he was not able to perform hardly at all. He really shouldn't have traveled. And the couple of times he did travel, he almost died from side effects. So he had a lot of baggage coming into my situation from his own. We both did, of we survived this and we can do this, but let's bubble wrap you. And I said, that's not really going to be my style. I'm going to be in a wait and see kind of frame of mind because I need to be who I am. And as artists, so much of our identity is wrapped up with not necessarily even what the world sees as success or as being, productive, but it's wrapped up in what we like to feel and like to do as artists. So even the sensation of singing for me, the times that I've gotten out there, which has been quite a bit, it's actually, I feel better after I get off stage. I'm not wiped out. I feel better oftentimes the next day. I kept practicing yoga. Shout out to Christine, who has her own, the Crow Practice yoga business. I kept practicing yoga. Every chance I got, I would be on that mat at my yoga studio and doing my best to live my normal life. So as an artist during this journey, it became impossible in a few circumstances, as you could understand. But as much as I could live doing the things that I enjoyed doing artistically and protecting that side of myself where I didn't see myself as a patient, but I saw myself still as a performer and a creative, was important to me. The biggest challenge that happened that almost snuffed out my artistry is back in October, I was put on an immunotherapy that is everybody's miracle drug. Have you seen commercials for it? It's called Keytruda. It's everybody's, you're going to live another 10, 20 years on Keytruda. Like they're just, it's incredible. Well, Keytruda, because I had cancer in my lungs, Keytruda attacked, it's your own body attacking the cancer, but it also attacked my lungs. And it left me with lung damage. But it was so gradual that I didn't realize it was happening. So in October of last year, I literally had the conversation with my doctor where she said, I'm sorry, I have nothing new for you. And you have to get off of Keytruda because it is killing your lungs. And I have nothing new for you. So it's important to remember this definition real quick. It's called pneumonitis. It's pneumonia, but the onset of pneumonitis is chemically driven. So pneumonia might be a bug that you get or the flu or whatever. Pneumonitis is pneumonia from chemicals or, from an outside force. So hold pneumonitis over here. I go and get a procedure. I interview doctors in New York and Arizona. I'm on like a tour of like, who can help me? My doctor can't help me anymore. So I knew it was going to be non-FDA approved, out of pocket, this crazy new thing that I'm going to try to do. Interviewed different doctors, found one in South Florida that was doing a cryo-freezing and then injecting you with immunotherapy, injecting the tumor directly. So he says, what we're going to do is we're going to go after your biggest tumor in your lung, and then it's going to hopefully have this contagion effect. And it's going to kill all the cancer. It's in your lungs, but we're going to get the biggest one first. Well, after the surgery, he said, unfortunately, we'll see if it worked, but we ended up, you have a pneumothorax, which is basically a small collapsed lung. I went to the hospital because I couldn't breathe a few days later. They said, no, we don't see a pneumothorax. You're good. A couple days later, sent me home. I'm dealing with pneumonitis still. Like I'm still having trouble breathing. And now maybe I have this pneumothorax. I go through the entire rehearsal process for Grinchmas at Universal, the entire rehearsal process for the Caroling Company, launching our national tour of A Christmas Carol, and all these random gigs, some traveling. I flew to LA and back, all the while not realizing I had a total collapsed lung. December 22nd, I went in for a scan, hoping things were getting a little better and that we were going to see how that was the scan that was going to determine whether the surgery had worked back in mid-November. We know there was a little problem with it, but did it kill the cancer? Well, I got a call basically within an hour of that scan. Usually takes days, right? No, within an hour saying, get to the hospital right now, go to triage, tell them you have a collapsed lung. They said that, even the picture, here's your rib cage, here's my lung. Sitting like a sad, deflated sack at the bottom. So I had 2 chest tubes, emergency surgery. I have a titanium staple at the top of my lung that I will live with for the rest of my life because they literally pull your lung up and staple it. I am titanium, shoot me down. So I literally am titanium. But even during that process, from October to January, I really didn't hit the stage at all. But I was still doing recording sessions. I even still did a strolling caroling gig because I needed myself on it. And was carrying around portable oxygen when I wasn't on stage. This whole November and December into January time period was really struggling. But even in the hospital, we had our jingle guy that we love working with. Sammy's like, hey, I'll bring the equipment to the hospital. He wanted us to do a jingle, and I literally recorded in the hospital. And it's not because I wanted to work. It's because I wanted to sing. And it gave me purpose, after 15 days of being in the hospital. It's like, oh yeah, this is who I am. This is what I do. And it's not, even if I didn't get a dime from performing or from entertainment for the rest of my life, that's what I do. And it was important to me throughout this process creatively to remind myself I'm a creative being. And I kept praying to God, don't silence your songbird. And the entire time, as long as I could get on stage, I was on this stage, on the worship team. Even when I wasn't fit to maybe do a 2-hour or 3-hour gig, I was on this stage. The first time I came back from surgery, I even had to sit on a stool, but I was on this stage the second I could be here. And finally, I'll wrap up by saying that the doctor told me after the surgery, still have pneumonitis during this. They gave me 5 days of steroids after the hospital because the surgeon says steroids are going to interfere with your lung healing and filling back up and expanding again. So I've got that pneumothorax, collapsed lung, but I've also got, remember, the pneumonitis. Only cure for pneumonitis is steroids. So they gave me 5 days leaving the hospital, came back home, and I was not good. I was not okay. I was huffing and puffing. I was like, if this is the way life is going to be, yikes. Because I finally was at a crossroads where I could not sing. And I went to the doctor, to my regular doctor, and she said, I don't ever see you doing a show again. She said, I'm worried about your career. Do you have enough going on the backside, on the backstage? Because I'm worried about your career. I don't ever see you singing again. And by the way, here's a handicap decal. And she checked the box, permanent. And I was like, whoa. I was not going to accept it. So I talked to my daughter, who is my unofficial physician. I talked to my stepdad, who's also a doctor. And I said, the steroid situation, they wound me down so fast. I feel like I should still be on steroids. I started reading these studies that said you need at least 6 weeks, 8 weeks of steroids to even bounce back at all from pneumonitis. So bottom line was, with their permission, I put myself back on steroids. I couldn't reach my pulmonologist. She was not available to me. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go for it. My first meeting with the pulmonologist, I told her what happened. They weaned me after 5 days. I put myself back on steroids, but I can breathe again. She's like, I put you in for 6 weeks of steroids. I don't know what happened. So it was what I was supposed to be doing to begin with. So anyway, I could breathe again. I got off of oxygen. I haven't turned on. They say that if you're on oxygen for 6 months, you're going to be on oxygen for the rest of your life. And it was like the 4 to 5 month mark. And I was like, whoa. Whoa. I weaned myself from oxygen. I haven't turned on an oxygen machine since the end of February. I'm like 3 weeks later, I went back to the same doctor and I went, guess what I did? I did 3 shows since I saw you last. By some miracle, there were these 1 hour gigs, like 3 in a row, where I could put myself on dueling pianos, just quick little 1 hour gigs that I could do. And then now I can do full band gigs again. And the great news is where I currently stand, I still need like a really thorough PET scan. But based on the latest testings, my lungs are good and my liver's good. I had a liver procedure in March, and that's good. So we're really optimistic about the journey. But as far as the creative force, I have been fighting back by being, I don't want to be defined by being a sick person, by being a person with disease, all of those things. I don't own any of that. That's something that's kind of happening to me right now. But who I am is still the person that I came into this with, which is a performer, an artist, a creative force. And I have tried to lean into that as much as I possibly can.
Wow. There's something about 2022 for some reason. It all happened in
Yeah.
2022.
The
So if you'll
crap
tell
hit
us-
the fan.
Yeah, Tali, so if you want to tell us your 2022 story of when everything fell out, I think you might be off. May I?
Hello.
Oh, you,
I'm on. Hi.
you sound on.
2022. Are you leaving now, Terry? That I'm gonna start talking about 2022. That's my former boss. I'll start by saying, well, I'm Tali Sugisawa. I'll start by saying that the arts gave me a second life. I was born and raised in Brazil, and within the Japanese culture, the only art thing that I was allowed to do was Kumon. Does anyone know what Kumon is? Is the math system. Lots of repetition. So that was my only art, was doing Kumon. And so I was raised as someone to be productive, as a business person, and worked my first job for 11 years. It was what brought me here to Orlando. And when I left that corporate job back in 2015, when I was already here, I was like, I want to do something different, but I have no idea what I want to do. Especially being raised the way that I was raised, very pragmatic, very, don't be flying around having creative ideas. It's when I sought a coach and where I met one of my very first friends in this country, Dana, who's here today. And I learned that, it is possible to change your life. And within a few months, I think, going through that process of kind of, trying to discover my yearnings and what I wanted to be next in my life. At the time, I think I was 32 or something like that. Yeah, 32. And that coach was one night at an event, and that gentleman who just left was my former boss. And he was like, hey, I have this idea of putting together this multicultural thing. Do you know anyone with an international background? And she was like, well, in fact, I do. Here's her number. Call her. And because I had just left my corporate job and was feeling pretty lost, he called me the next day and said, we're gathering, people here to talk about this. Do you want to come by and be part of this? I'm like, sure. So at the time, I had left the job that brought me here, and I was waiting on our green cards. So I really could not take any jobs. So I'm like, yeah, I want to meet and I can volunteer and I can do whatever. At the time, I was pretty sure my daughter was in kindergarten and the whole school was really tired of me because I got into all of the things and I started questioning everything. And getting the answer of, yeah, you're right. We should change this homework thing. But it's the system. It's not going to change. Actually, there's nothing we can do. Anyway, so I have always been about changing things. And when I started this new volunteering work with Terry Olsen, who was the Orange County Government Arts and Cultural Affairs Director, it opened up a whole new world to me of culture and community, which the arts wasn't exactly new to me. My husband is a full-time musician, has worked with Shalisa, still works with you, right? And so it was new. I understood the arts and the music business and the music industry by being married to him and produced music videos for him and all the business side of the things. But I had no idea of what arts and community really were. So I started this new job working with Terry, and we created this thing called Fusion Fest, which became a nonprofit and is one of the largest multicultural celebrations in Orange County, if not in the whole state of Florida. And I did that for about 6 years. And 1 year before, well, so then in 2022 is when I had it's when I had my second burnout. So my first burnout was in my corporate job, and the second one was leading a nonprofit organization, which is really hard. I think corporate burnout is easier to identify because you start hating your job, but you love the money. But when you are a nonprofit or in the arts or in a creative business, the burnout is so hard because you love what you do and you see the impact. And it's so hard to recognize that you are sick, right? That you need help because you just can't function anymore. That's how a burnout works. So that's what happened to me in 2022. But how could I walk away from something that I created, something that gave me a new professional life, a new career? It was just very, very painful. But December of 2022, I did have this vision of kind of just drowning and being on this tiny boat. And I told Terry that when I resigned. I said, I feel like I'm in this tiny boat, and I'm like, help. And you are in this big ship. And he was like, grab a floaty, find help. I'm like, I can't. I really can't. And that's when I decided again, it's time for a change. And what saved me at the time was the moment and the time when I was hanging out with Dana a lot and our creative coach, when I discovered what my yearning was before everything, before the corporate job, before Kumon, before what my parents were expecting of me as, a straight A student. I always wanted to write my stories. I always had this yearning of telling my own story. And that's what I discovered with my creative coach at the time. So I went back to that. And after I resigned, I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just take time. And yeah, that meant that my husband had to be on gigs 7 days a week, sometimes double, triple gigs. But I had, for the first time, I took a break and I decided to invest in myself and my creative side, did some writing courses. And I remember that I started a new Substack thing. And my friends really supported me. LJ in the back was a big supporter. And I'm like, I think fighting imposter syndrome is really hard, especially when you're a business person. And then all of a sudden, like, wait a minute, I can be a creative. And I was sharing with Charlize in the back that I had this kind of standard answer when people would ask me, oh, so your husband is this big star on the stage, and your daughter is also singer, musician, actor. Are you also an artist? And I would say, my art is Excel spreadsheets and bank accounts and saving accounts, and that's my and PowerPoint presentations. That's my art. And start owning that was a healing process for me. Is how I got over this burnout. Is how I could kind of, get in touch with who I really wanted to be. And it was 6 months of really writing and starting a book, writing this memoir. And it was really a healing journey for me. But again, it started in 2022. So yeah, fun fact. Yes. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you guys for sharing those stories so in depth for all of us. So I love that creativity in essence is three different things for us. There's the creativity of the Excel spreadsheets, creativity of the I am a singer, and then for me, creativity lands in a different place. And I'm just kind of curious, where does that creative spark, where does that come from? Do you guys think of through all the challenges, through all the diagnoses, through all of it? Is it just innately in us, or is it a muscle? Where do you think that just need comes from to be creative?
I don't know if anybody's ever read Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, but it poses, read it if you get a chance, it poses this idea that any that ideas or art forms, whether it is writing or songs or poems or a cool business idea, anything that is a new entity is almost a life form. And that if you have the vision to bring that thing to life and you drop the ball, as most people do, or you abandon that vision, that somebody's going to pick it up and do it, because it is a life form. It is inevitable, but it needs a vehicle, and you can be that vehicle. And if you put in the time and put in the work to be that vehicle, you could and should be the vehicle. But if life gets in the way, if things happen, if you don't bring that to life, it's going to happen, and you're going to see it, and you're going to go, ooh, that was my idea. But you'll also know, like, even she's had a situation where she almost had a piece about it, and it was like, well, it had to come to fruition. It had to be. So I like the idea that it's almost its own life form. And I think in order to bring things to life, because I mentioned that I'm, a singer and an artist. I'm writing a book about my journey right now called 3 Years Left. That's, it's been a separate project. I have a keynote address talking about harmony in action, which is musical ideas and analogies for creating harmony, but that actually track and work in real life, in your relationships and team building as an individual. So I think these ideas need quiet and quiet time. And it's hard for your mind to be quiet when you're going through adversity. But sometimes you might have a little more time on your hands if you're not just going through your regular routine. So I think a big component, even for what happened to me, is yes, there are some trips. Actually, to a certain point, until last December, I actually was at a place where I said there was not a single trip I had canceled, or meeting I had canceled, or gig I had canceled because of my cancer journey. But last winter, I did have that finally came to a halt, and I did have to alter plans. So I think if you make choices to protect your body or protect your mind when you're going through something that's challenging, use that quiet time instead to just simply listen. We're into our screens. We can bury ourselves in, binging TV shows, and all of those things quiet the creative process. But if you can just sit with your thoughts and allow ideas to bubble up. We tend to want to numb ourselves, but instead of numbing ourselves when we're going through something, if we can sit in it and just be quiet and open, I think that creativity can bubble up.
Yeah, Tali, where do you think that creative spark comes from?
I think for me at work now, I'm in marketing. I'm pursuing the arts. I don't think I'll ever leave the arts. Now I work for United Arts of Central Florida, and I lead the Cultural Tourism Initiative, which is telling the world that we have more than theme parks. And I think what my spark in the campaigns that I create, it really comes from, this was never done before. I love doing things for the first time. So in my writing, which my book, I don't know if that book is ever going to be published, or if I'll ever finish that memoir. Maybe, I don't know.
Hopefully there's a lot more years to come.
I know,
for the
yeah.
memoir before it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's and that's okay, right? It's okay to start something and then take a break from something, and from that something, and because it's life just keeps lifing, right? Now my priority is raising a beautiful 14-year-old daughter. The teen years are not easy, but what sparks the creativity, I think it's that my family. My mom is an orphan, and my dad, coming from Japan, the story, they have a culture of not really sharing the story. And I want this to be different in my life and for my family. I want my story to be wide open. So I think that's where it comes. My spark is like, this was never done before. No one in my family is wanting to share their story. Like whenever I ask, like, I don't really remember how that went. I'm like, what? No. So I think that's where it comes for me, is like something that was not done before.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. I think for me, when I think about where the creative spark first started, it was probably when I was really, really young, and I would go to church and I would see people reading the Bible and talking about how we should treat each other, and then I would see people leave and not do it, and I just even my 5-year-old brain was just like, this doesn't make sense. You just said do this, and everyone's doing this. And there was this need to change something, or this need to express the what I felt at the time was the right way to do it. So even before I felt like an artist, like a performer or a writer, it felt like there was just this almost unexplainable just need to express something, like a story, or there just needs to be something there. 'Cause I do feel like a lot of people don't necessarily feel like they are creatives, but I wonder if creativity is not something just deeper inside of you, and it's not just simply I'm a singer or I'm a writer or anything like that.
I think also, AJ, it comes a lot from connection, wanting connection in my writing. And my first blog, per se, was when I was pregnant, and I wrote stories about how I met her dad. So it was a blog for her, like sharing those stories. When I moved here, I met with a financial advisor guy, and he did his homework. He Googled me and he found, it's like, oh, I saw your story. That's so cute. You have a perfect family. And that really didn't sit well with me. I'm like, I don't have a perfect family. In fact, we're going through a terrible crisis in our marriage right now. And I decided to start writing a new one, just sharing very honest truth about marriage and life and, the hardships. And I don't have a number of how many people reach out to me. Is like, oh my gosh, me too. I'm going through the same thing. I wish my husband would go to therapy with me like you guys are doing. What was your strategy? And I'm so glad you shared that. I had this whole different idea of you guys. So I think it also comes from that yearning of connection with other people. Like you shared, Shalisa, when you're sharing about your journey, if you can help one person, like that's the spark too, right? Of sharing your story and being able to connect with other people and help other people and just see yourself, right? It's like, okay, I'm not alone in this.
Totally. And I think I've been really transparent on social media and have done a lot of updates because I have a lot of friends and family from, all over. Even my kids are scattered from, LA to Miami. So I've shared a lot, but it's also because I feel like if somebody can relate to you in any way, that it's such a relationship builder and it is such a community builder. And there might be a time, like as far as feeling discouraged, I would sometimes during this process, I would wake up and like, how you wake up at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. sometimes to go to the bathroom. I'd wake up to go to the bathroom and I would think, oh yeah, I'm going through this thing. Crap. And go back to bed and, and lay there for a while. And then I would be like, nope, we're writing our story right now. Like not literally the story I'm writing, but we're writing our life story right now. And you're not going down in flames. Like you're not going to get your butt kicked right now and be defeated and let that be your legacy and let that be your messaging to your kids, to your family, to the community. No, you are going to get up and fight and you're going to be victorious. And so I think as a creative, I almost feel like a responsibility to tell the story and to be strong and to be relatable, but also to stay victorious with it.
Yeah, I love that. I love this question as well. Were there any specific tools or mindsets or just practices that are a part of your daily life that just kept showing up for you in the darkest times to stay creative when everything else wants to shut down? Was there a way to keep showing up in the gym?
Sure, I'll kick it off. And literally, I'd mentioned it earlier, but literally in the gym, any chance I've gotten to go to yoga during all of this, it's been an important thing for me to feel normal and healthy still, even though even people are like, how's your health? How's your sickness? And I still don't want to identify as being a sick person. And a lot of that has been working it out through yoga still, and quieting my mind. The other thing is we developed a morning routine during COVID of daily devotional. And the two of us together sit down any morning that we're home. And the first thing we do with our first cup of coffee is we sit together and we read from a devotional, and we take turns. A lot of times I'll have Jeremy say the prayer, but we'll take turns saying the prayer. And we even have little communion cups. So sometimes we take communion. So that's been like a morning ritual that has kept us grounded, both of us.
That is so sweet.
And it didn't start till 2020. And I think it's really cool that I feel like we were being prepared for what was to come, for the storm that was to come, because we had a couple of years of just doing that as our routine. And it was just a sweet little morning time, and the birds were tweeting and our dog was cute, and, and the coffee was on. And then, now we really need that time together, to fight the battle. But I read whenever I first started this journey, I read Suleika has this book called Between Two Kingdoms. She's John Bautista's wife. And she went through a really bad leukemia battle and is still battling. You see her in various stages of hair shaved. Even today, they did a movie called American Symphony, and it won a Grammy because he was out winning Grammys one night for his own career, and she was in the hospital. And so the contrast of where their life was taking them, their collective life together, her stories have been amazing. She also just did one called Creative Alchemy, and it talks about the habit of different people are talking about their creative habits, where it's like a discipline where you work out. And so for me, even during this writing about my journey, once I started writing about it and updating that, has been a way for me to help it make sense and also put it in perspective, where I know it's not all for naught, and it's not just, crap happens, but it's, that it's leading somewhere, and it's maybe helping people, or, that it's making our family more faith-based, anything that can be a silver lining out of this, because it is crap, but if you can find that through line or find things that make sense, I think if you are in the discipline of writing, at least every few days, that it's helpful too.
Yeah, and I love something to hone in on a little bit from what you said is you created a ritual that brought you joy. It added dopamine to your brain.
Absolutely.
It was actually enjoyable. I think a lot of times when we think about going into the gym, so to speak, that's just the gym is coach speak for us of just when we train anything. A lot of times we can think it has to be rigorous, it has to be hard, we have to really grow through it. We have to blood, sweat, and tears through it. But really, when you're really going through grief and struggle, just adding some dopamine to your brain, putting yourself in a place that just fills you up, that you enjoy, all of a sudden enough of that, you start to grow this muscle again of the dopamine, this muscle of joy. And now all of a sudden, maybe I do want to write again a little bit. Maybe I do want to do something more creative, and it just over that time of creating that joy for yourself.
That's true. And speaking of creating joy, I've kind of defied some common sense or some doctor's order sometimes, but I've still traveled a lot during this because I love going to new places and experiencing new things. And it's worked out. Just we're in between treatments, these little windows. We had a European Viking riverboat cruise, which is like super mellow, back in 2023, and it was supposed to be right in the middle of chemo. And he's like, we have to cancel everything. I was like, no, let's just see how this plays out. We can't get our money back anyway. Let's see how this plays out. Well, it turns out they moved up my chemo, and this perfect little window was this beautiful, slow little Viking cruise through Austria and Germany, and we could read on the balcony and stroll through these little towns. And then I started radiation the next week. So it was like literally this 2 week period off from treatment. And it brought me so much joy, and it strengthened me between traveling to see my kids or, going to events where I get to hang out with friends, planning things that make me happy in between the treatments and not holing up at home like a hermit.
Yeah. Tali, any just best practices, tools that really
Well,
came for you?
if I can speak on the other side of it, if anyone is struggling with their creative practice, I definitely have writer's block now because my full focus is on my work and my daughter. So, and that's okay. That's okay. Sometimes you do need to take a break. And I pulled my phone because I want to share something with you that made me feel better. And sometimes we have to push through, right? And be that discipline. And sometimes we need to rest and take care of other areas of our lives. So I want to share this quote from Helena Bonham Carter, who really helped me be in peace with. I get to be very creative at work, so I would have to say that creating things at work, but in my personal life, not as much. But then I saw this quote, and it goes like this: I think everything in life is art. What you do, how you dress, the way you love someone, and how you talk, your smile and your personality, what you believe in, and all your dreams, the way you drink your tea, how you decorate your home or party, your grocery list, the food you make, how your writing looks, and the way you feel. Life is art. So that made me feel much better about this season of not personally creating things. But Shalisa's spot on is all about discipline, and you were spot on is all about, hitting the gym and having time to write or time to work your craft, either if it's a violin that you've been playing for so many years and you're pro, worldly, globally known for it, or if you just started something. But yeah, but I think my point is also giving people permission to have a break when they have other things they need to focus on.
Yeah, I call those little artistic vacations. So as an artist and just as someone living in 2025, there is so much going on in our heads all the time. Especially as an artist, we have 10 different projects that we could sit down today and work on right now. They're covering our desktop, they're in a hard drive somewhere, and that can in and of itself can create the anxiety. It can create it can exacerbate something you're already going through. I'm going through this, but I have all of these things that I need to do. And sometimes when we just take a little creative vacation, it's that idea of, okay, I'm working on a book. I'm just going to kind of let it go for a minute. Maybe a month. I'm going to take a vacation. I'm not going to quit. I'm not done with it, but it's going to go over here for a little
It's
while.
in the back burner.
We love
right?
the back burner. Yes. Because it's still simmering back there. It's becoming a really nice
Well, and
sauce
sometimes you
back
can
there.
gain new insight into something by getting a little bit of distance from it. As long as you don't lose sight of it completely, you can, if you kind of back burner something, you might have new inspiration once you revisit it.
Because the projects that are right for you will never leave you. If you have 10 projects that are in your mind, take a month break from every single one of them. And then the 1 or 2 or 3 that are really worth your time, you will have thought about them that entire month. And the other ones will just be gone. As a writer, that's one of the most helpful things. I'll see a person juggling on TV and I'll go, oh, that would be a fun story. A juggler who's injured or something. It's a juggler with one hand who's broken or something. And I mean, it's everywhere. Anything can be a story. So before you know it, you've got 20 different ideas. Each one of them is going to take you 8 months to write it, right? And you can sit there and go, how long do I have to live to do all of this stuff? And so it is sometimes you can get overwhelmed with your own desire, your own drive, your own spark, and just taking a little break, allowing yourself to breathe. Like you're saying, like what could be worse than having an amazing success with your book and completely missing out on the family life that you wanted, or just hating your life? What could be worse than getting everything you've ever wanted and hating your life? I mean, it's why we see so many celebrities, mega successful people struggling in so many different personal avenues, because you get so laser focused, you think you're not allowed to take a break and possibly look at what life is actually trying to give you in the meantime. So my next question, sort of in that realm, is creativity for making things is one thing, our drive to make and succeed, but also creativity in our actual recovery process. How has creativity itself, just the act of creativity, how has that actually been vital in your guys' recovery process and just in your process of coming to terms with who you are and what it is that you actually want to do? How has creativity been vital to those recovery, to that recovery?
For me, it's the opposite of what common sense and medical science would dictate, because so much of that is rest, take it easy, just, just stay home, put your feet up, don't do much. And for me, even with the lung issue, I was, huffing and puffing for a while, but the thing that got me out of being oxygen dependent even was singing again, was getting out and about again, was speaking, was, public speaking, forcing myself to get out of the body laziness that I was feeling, or body recovery that I was feeling. And even Jeremy was like, I know it goes against, I was like, I need to move. I need to be active and breathe and go places and do things. And he's like, I know it goes completely against what all of us are thinking and feeling, but you're right. When you do something out and about, even when you perform, when you go to meetings and network, you're actually better than you were before that. So I feel like so
next week we'll have all of our significant others up here talking about their side of the journey.
So I feel like staying with projects, saying yes to projects as long as I could physically get there, and just staying part of that artistic community and feeling like that was still who I was, has been vital for me in this recovery process. So more so than any drugs I was taking or any procedures I've had, the through line for me has been to continue life as I love my life. So to continue my life that I love as normally as possible, still knowing what I'm going through and trying to figure out even how to help people along the way with that.
Tyler?
I think it's, feeling alive, I guess. It makes you feel alive. Yeah.
Just a sense of getting back to who I am.
Yeah.
Not allowing the stresses or the challenges to beat us, I guess.
Define you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That whatever challenge you're going through right now is temporary, but it's not who you are as a creative soul.
Yeah, I have a very tangible path of how creativity affected my recovery journey. So when I first came back down here to Florida, I was lost. I had been living in Atlanta. I was no idea what I was doing. And then Pastor Sammy, gave me a camera and let me go off and shoot projects and stuff, which directly led to getting hired by Jeremy and Shalisa to becoming their director of video production, which directly led to me joining a group called BNI, Business Networking International. They'll like this plug, I guess. Which in that group, it's a marketing group where you guys all really get to know each other in your chapter. In that chapter, I got invited to go visit another chapter. In that chapter, I met my current doctor. His name is Dr. Michael St. Louis. The coolest name I've ever heard. Dr. Michael St. Louis. Shout out Dr. St. Louis. But I've met him in that chapter and learned that he was a upper cervical chiropractor. He specifically only worked in upper cervical. He dealt with people with migraines, with vertigo, all sorts of different things. And he was the first doctor that I ever had in about 3.5 years who looked me in the face and said, "Oh yeah, I think I know what's going on with you." I mean, that feeling was, I mean, that alone was a perk of that. And so my recovery process where I'm at is just night and day from where I was 3 years ago. And it's literally because I was creative, because I made a choice to say, no, I don't feel good. I don't feel like I want to feel, but I can still do the things I want to do. It's not going to feel how I want it to feel, but I can still do them. And that choice is what directly led, like in line, piece by piece, to finding the doctor who actually can help me. Never would have happened without
What's your
choosing to be
official
creative.
diagnosis?
My C2, my second vertebrae, is rotated about 8 degrees, and vestibular symptoms occur at 0.02 degrees.
Wow. So
So
it's a
it's
spinal
rotated
issue.
spinal issue, which is causing my atlas to come out. And basically, that was out for long enough where my muscles started to learn how to operate that way. And they finally said no more. So they tensed up and then are starting to play with all those nerves. So as we're pulling everything back, everything is gently coming back. But legitimately, because of the creative route, I never would have. I say never, but it just perfectly led to that actual recovery process.
I was going to say, do you find that when you challenge yourself, even if you don't feel physically like doing the work or like being on a creative journey in that moment, like whatever that day entails, do you find that you feel better physically as a result of the joy you get from being creative?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and
Me too.
one of the biggest anxiety creators is I want to have this experience a certain way. I think just in life we're like that. I want everything to go a certain way. I want it to feel a certain way. For instance, we came and shot a really great, probably my favorite project I've ever shot. This proof of concept film that we shot here, but it was so hard to enjoy it because I was dizzy. And had I been able to go, okay, I feel dizzy. It's making me frustrated that I feel dizzy. If I were able to just kind of go back from 30,000 feet and go, yes, but I can still do this. It's not going to feel the way I imagined it in my head, but that doesn't mean it's not happening, and it doesn't mean it's always going to feel this way. So just for creativity, but also just life in general, being open to what the world is going to give you, how the world's going to make you feel in a moment might honestly be what you need. It's not it. If we had the power to make every single thing exactly how we wanted it to do, we'd probably create our own demise, honestly.
Like the Rolling Stones said, you can't always get what you want, but you just might find you get what you need.
Absolutely. So I think this moves us great into sort of the second tier of this creative journey. So for me, it was my community. It was the people that reached out to me, the people that were there for me. Honestly, obviously, Pastor Sammy giving me the opportunity, and you guys giving me the opportunity to grow as an artist. But where does community come into play in the recovery journey, in creativity? Where do those marry? How does community sort of speak to you guys around the creative space and the need for it?
I'll let you start since you're so community driven.
Okay. Yes. Well, first of all, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for community. When I met LJ 10 years ago, I was like, "Do you want to come over to my group at my house?" It was at a church. I had no idea what I was doing, leading a home church group if I didn't even know where Luke was in the Bible. But that's how the pastors trust me to have the people that needed a place and offered that place. So without any family in this country, community is very, very important to me. From LJ that I met 10 years ago to Dana Wells and my newest friend, Lisa, who's here. It's so important because that's the base of being human, right? We are communal people. And the pandemic, as we all know, kind of isolated us. But anyway, the first time that I thought about leaving Fusion Fest, I asked someone who also started her own nonprofit, and I said, "Do you think I'm allowed to leave and walk away from something I created? And it's so amazing." And she said, "Yes." So and that's when like, okay, I'm allowed to do that. But without community, we don't have those moments where we see ourselves as quote unquote normal or, belonging. And I think to me, community brings a lot of courage. That's where I get my courage from. When I speak about something, it's through community that we get by. Now, under this administration, the arts are under attack a lot. So if we don't unite, it's through the power of unity that we're like, okay, all funding is being cut, but we got this. We're gonna go through it. We get creative with what we do, and then the community steps in. With United Arts, we just wrapped up our collaborative campaign for the arts, and it was a record breaking of $9 million being raised from the community. So it's amazing. And last year we did, I think, 6 million or 6.5 million. So it's incredible how the community will step in to fill that gap where government has left or any other funder has left. The community will step in. So it's true in philanthropy, and it's true also in our personal lives for me.
I love our event and entertainment community in Central Florida. I've heard it's really unique, even from people who are in other markets. We have friends in LA and in Vegas and in New York, and our community is so collaborative. It's really cool because different pockets of people may have their own, as entrepreneurs, they may have their own company or their own entity, their own band, their own show, their own creative house, but we all call on each other. We all take turns recommending each other for work or facilitating work for others. Some of it is just organic because we know people and we've been around for so long and, have crossed paths and worked and know the work is excellent. Sometimes it's facilitated through organizations like ILEA that I'm past president of, and MPI that I'm current vice president of. I love these organizations too because they have a standard of excellence that they expect from everyone involved. So people are accountable. You know that they're going to do the work and do it well. You get a lot of opportunities to get on phone calls or get in meetings with people and literally make art together that is going to go out on a corporate stage or a theme park stage. So our community as a whole for arts and for entertainment and events is it is special here, and I always feel protective of that even because I just love these relationships. So in my challenging last few years, I really appreciate and don't take for granted how normally everyone is treating me, and I say that in a good way. I never wanted for anybody to feel sorry for me. I don't want for people to, treat me with kid gloves or feel like I am not ready for an opportunity because of my circumstance. And I really feel like for the most part, everyone is the way that I have been treated and embraced has been with love and compassion, but like really erring on the side of treating me as normal as possible, which has been really inspirational to me. And it helps me because I've even started a couple of new endeavors during all of this. I've held offices and people have given me offices even while this is going on. I remember Todd from Oddities is a good buddy, and he was outgoing president while Barbie Parham was incoming president for ILEA, and I was the president-elect. So I was I was not taking over for another year and change, and my diagnosis happened. And I saw Todd the next month. He's like, okay, but what if, what? And I'm like, I'm fine, Todd. I'm going to be good. I'll still be here. I promise. And that's really how everybody has treated me, with the assumption that if they work with our company, we're going to be there for them. That if they hire me as a person, I'm going to be there. If I'm supposed to be in a meeting as a volunteer and as an officer on a board, that I'm going to be there. And they haven't let me down, so I haven't let them down. And even during this, the keynote that I came up with was all a creative brainstorm that happened like over the last year and a half. And even embracing that during this time period of my life, which is not, completely normal era for me, has been really, really touching. And it's been great that I have been treated so business as usual, and I also have like an inner sanctum of creative people that I trust and rely on, and they've just absolutely been there for us.
It's so easy when you have something that you're going through, especially in adulthood. It's so easy to fall into, oh, this is happening to me. Nobody else can possibly be in my head, so I am by myself. It's so easy to tell ourselves that we are alone because our brain is so strong. Our brain will believe anything that we put into it enough. If we tell ourselves that we are alone enough, we will believe it, and we will make ourselves alone. I remember when I first came back down to Florida, I was like, oh, this is going to be great. It's going to be, I'm recovering. I went to high school down here. I've got friends everywhere. Yeah, all those friends are now 35. They've all got kids, and not one of them has time to worry about me. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm completely alone through this. And it took a while for me to really go, okay, how can I be creative around my community? I don't just have these people that I thought I had my whole life in that same way. So how can I be creative? How do you guys have any thoughts of how people can be creative in building their community? If someone's out there and they feel alone, they're going through a diagnosis that nobody understands, they're in a place where it's hard to explain what they're going through or what their family situation is, how can people be creative about the community?
They always talk about it's hard to make friends once you're an adult. Like, when you're a kid, it's just so much easier to go up to somebody and say, will you be my friend? And as an adult, it's harder to make those connections. I think getting involved with organizations, like professional organizations that are also kind of social, is helpful because you find yourself at coffee talks and meetings and cocktail hours with people that are like-minded. I think another thing is simply, if there's somebody that you hit it off with, just simply texting or calling and saying, you're really cool. Let's hang out. Let's get coffee sometime. It's even if they don't ask you taking that first step. I'm in a stage right now. I've lived here my whole life and I have such a built-in great group of friends, but I'm in a stage where I'm not saying no really to anything like that, because it could be what I call a divine appointment, where you get to help somebody, they get to help you. Whatever connection you have may be something that needed to happen, cosmically, spiritually needed to happen. And so there are people even like from my son's school that he wasn't even particularly friends with the kid, but the mom is like, hey, let's grab lunch sometime. No agenda, and I'm saying yes to all of those moments. An accompanist for a show that I directed 10 years ago wants to have breakfast. Sure. Turns out she had a cancer journey that she kept completely private, didn't tell a soul, and had all kinds of insight and also wanted that connection. And so I think being the more confident person in that potential relationship and saying, hey, you're cool. Let's hang out sometime. Check your schedule. Because a lot of times we go, hey, we should hang out. But no, get out your planner. Like, let's send me some times that you can get together over the next 2 or 3 weeks, and then actually making that happen. And then they become part of your orbit.
Which to some people, that sounds terrifying. It takes courage, especially as an adult. It takes a lot of courage to just genuinely say, I might want to know you more than this 5-minute period.
It is, but the payoff is great. And even if you end up with one coffee hang and, and glean a lot of things from that, and that's it, that's one thing. But the chances are, if you are feeling like you're hitting it off, they probably are feeling like you're hitting it off too. And it could really develop into something sweet.
And the odds are they're potentially feeling the exact same way you are. They're wishing someone would just be like, hey, can I get to know you a little bit more? Because they might not have the courage themselves to ask that as well.
Exactly. Being the more confident person in that scenario, just step it up.
Yeah. Charlie, do you feel how can people just be creative about community?
Yeah, I mean, what you guys said, but I'll give you a little not advice, but suggestions for our introverts. There's this thing now that it's called fourth spaces. You know how we call like coffee shops the third place? It's not home, it's not work, it's where you go for like kind of both. The fourth spaces now, they are where we bring our online hobbies into the real world. So for my introvert audience, people out there, there's in Orlando, there's this thing called the Orlando Silent Book Club. You grab a book, you just go and sit and quietly just read your book. There's no book of the month, it's just whatever book you want to read. There's another one called Orlando Sketch Club that you go and you just sit there and sketch, and you can talk to people or not. But I think for introverts, it's a little harder, right, to show up. And I'm definitely an extrovert, but I have friends who are like, I cannot go to this networking events. And even my coworker Bianca, who's with me at some of the events, she's definitely an introvert. So at the end, she's so exhausted. I'm like, even showing up is great. Like, even if you don't have that courage to come up and talk to someone, I think the key is just showing up and finding those niche, right? Like and there's more and more of those online communities getting not outside of online, but having an in-person presence. Like, go to bookstores that you like or cat cafes and things like that. Sometimes it's just showing up.
Yeah, just showing up, and you never know what a moment means for someone else. You never know if you're looking for community, if you're looking to connect with someone, you have no idea, just even the attempt of reaching out to another person, how that can affect them, how can that can affect their day, what that can inspire them to do. It just takes courage. Yeah, it just takes a bit of courage.
I've had so many people, social media wise, praying for me during this and encouraging me. And there are people who've come out of the woodwork that I consider acquaintances, but not like super close friends necessarily, that have reached out to me privately with, text or private message with just the sweetest, most encouraging things that mean the world to me. Like, it really does. People you didn't necessarily expect that from. And so I've kind of tried to do the same thing now in, whenever I see somebody making a difference or see somebody that may need encouragement or, that I feel like I need to speak to. I've been trying to be more brave and more aware of, hey, reach out, because it could mean something to them that you notice or that you see what they're doing and appreciate it and are cheering. My big thing is I'm cheering you on.
Yeah, and being creative for someone else, being creative for that connection as a creative, as our profession, it can be so simple for us to go into this is my work. It's my work. I'm doing it for to elevate myself. I have to get good so that I can get hired. But I do wonder if there's something in that, using your gift, using your creativity to bring light to somebody else. I wonder if that is a way that just kind of the ordinary person can involve creativity in connecting with other people. And then the three of us have obviously gone through some very specific struggles, very specific challenges. But are challenges at this level just inevitable in a way? Are there muscles of creativity we just need to go ahead and make sure that we're working, because it's never going to necessarily work out exactly how we want it to? How does that?
Yes. The short answer is yes. Everybody's got their own battle or their own struggle. Things can be smooth for many, many years, but eventually everybody's going to lose a parent. Everybody's going to maybe have a professional setback of some time. Like it is inevitable that something will happen that throws us off of our normal track. So I think having things in place, like the tools that we talked about in the exercises of, I'm going to journal every day, or I'm going to hit a yoga class or two to quiet my mind, or do a devotional every morning to get in line and get perspective. I think all of those things are, even songwriting as a discipline. Like, people in my field who write songs, a lot of times don't get great at it until and it's like exercising a muscle. So I think having those things in place and knowing that even if you have to take a little break from them, that's who you are, that's what you do. I'm the person that goes to yoga. I'm the person that does my devotional. I'm the person that writes for 15 minutes a day, no matter what. You're no longer the person that's battling cancer.
Yeah. And in the coaching space, there's a really well-known book that a lot of guys might know called Atomic Habits.
Yes, I love that book.
It's the kind of book that a lot of people give somebody for a gift, so it sits like on their toilet because they're going to read it. But so a lot of people know the book, but not a lot of people have actually gone into it that I actually come across. So in the book, what he talks about is the idea of an atomic habit. Atomic meaning like in an atom, very, very, very small. Everything's a muscle. So what are the choices that you can make today that are incredibly small, right? As small as, can you pick up a pen? Can you open Gmail? Can you drive past a paint store? What are the tiny little choices that you can make that can slowly open that up? It can slowly open up that creative spark. It can slowly open up. What are the tiny little choices you can make around community if you're looking to connect with people? What are the little tiny things that over time grow into an entire shift in your entire mindset? I want to wrap us up.
I love that book, and I want to piggyback onto that too. There's a book of David and Goliath and Malcolm Gladwell, and in that book, you're amazed by how many world-setting, world-beater kind of people had just a terrible thing, catastrophic thing happen to them, and it's almost like they had no choice but to be awesome, and they just went at it like full throttle. And it's a really interesting book if you get a chance to also read that, because I think it inspires you to know that A, everybody goes through something, and B, that great things can come. It's almost like the more you've been kicked down, pulling that pendulum back, that you can actually achieve even more.
Yeah, I love it. And so how can we support the next generation of creatives, or really of anyone, but in a creative focus, who we know they're going to go through challenges, they're going to go through struggles? How can we sort of set other people up for success?
I think encouraging them educationally or vocationally. And if you're in a position where you're a relative, an aunt, an uncle, a parent, a grandparent, if you can even financially support some of their endeavors as they're kicking it off the ground, and literally put your money where your mouth is, I think that's giving them a nice safety net and a softer place to land. And so they don't get caught up with the day-to-day, oh my gosh, I'm, going to get kicked out of my apartment because my rent's due, or I can't go to college because I can't afford it. Anything that you can do if you're an adult and you're in a financial position to help out at all. I think literally supporting the arts at a family level instead of going, you'll never get a job,
What Shalisa said, and it really starts with us looking at local. I think the big entertainment companies do great, and we value that a lot. How many channel subscriptions we have now, from Disney to Hulu to Netflix, right? But how many local shows are we going to? How many theater shows we're going to? So it's all about supporting local, because they need to start somewhere, right? Even people who work at theme parks, that's not what even if they're full time at Disney or Universal, they still need to do something local to make ends meet. So I say that my job will be done when we don't have that perception of the starving artist. I want my daughter to be able to be an artist, and people will not ask her, but what else do you do? But do you have a job? Or are you just a singer, or just an actor? Because we don't ask that of dentists, right? We don't ask that of doctors. Why do we treat artists kind of like we treat our teachers, right? Why are they so poorly compensated? and maybe not in the big entertainment world, but in local. So I would just encourage everyone to go to artsinorlando.com and find something local to do. Go support local theater, support our local choir, community choirs, and remember, arts is a huge part of mental health. And since we talked so much about books, there's this new book called Your Brain on Art, and it shows how much it affects our mental health. So we're working at United Arts really hard on advancing this notion. So, when you go to the doctor and like, okay, take these pills once a week, whatever, you have to exercise twice a week. We want to make sure that the doctors are also prescribing art as go to a show. There's so many free live music going around in town, or go walk at a gallery, or join a community choir, right? Or go sing with your friends, just do a karaoke night and see the effects of being involved in the arts, how that will affect your mental health and your overall health, right? Not just mental health. So I think it all starts with us. If we want to see a world where creativity and the arts, they are a feasible life because art is essential, then it starts with us putting our money where our mouth is.
Yeah, and even mentoring, if you're a leader, like we have all different age groups here, but if you're a leader in the community and you have your own group, your own business, your own practice, taking a little bit of time and maybe mentoring somebody that's in college or mentoring somebody who's in high school that is pursuing a career in art and letting them pick your brain. I know that organizations like MPI and ILEA have a lot of student opportunities. And the more, it actually helps me creatively when I talk to somebody about their dreams and their aspirations, because we live in a very different world creatively now than we did, when I was in college or 20 years, 30 years ago. And so it's inspirational to me as well. I get something and I learn whenever I'm mentoring somebody younger.
Because AI is coming. It's coming to all of our industries. And it's so easy to think that it's just going to replace a lot of art. But it's not going to create the human need to be creative. So
and the emotional tug, like in all of us, the adversity that you go through is what creates the emotional tug.
Yeah, not everyone who would have been an artist is just going to decide to go do something else with their life because of AI or because there's less opportunities. So if you know somebody in the arts at all, just ask them what their vision is, ask them what they really want to do. That conversation alone could really open up some really great stuff for them. Thank you guys so much for coming for our first ever one of these. I really appreciate it. Thank you, these guys. Please meet somebody that you guys have never met before. Get a little creative maybe in how you meet them. I don't know. Do a cool handshake or something.